I didn't know that the paperwork they slid across that dining table would end with a judge quietly erasing my name like it never belonged there in the first place. By the time my aunt said, "We just need you to sign off since you're already listed," my stomach had already dropped because nobody had told me I was listed on anything. We were sitting in my mama's dining room, the same one with the wobble in the third chair and the faint smell of pine sol that never quite goes away. There was a half-eaten pan of baked chicken on the counter, aluminum foil folded back like it was listening. Everybody was there. My mother at the head of the table, lips pressed tight. My older brother scrolling on his phone like this had nothing to do with him. Two aunties nodding in unison, like backup singers who already knew the chorus. And me, apparently, starring in a decision I hadn't auditioned for. They said it was just a family meeting. That's what the text said. About the house. No urgency emojis, no drama. I almost didn't come because I just gotten off work and my twist out was tired, my feet were tired, and my spirit was tired in that way where you don't even feel like explaining why you're tired. But family meetings in my family have always been code for we already talked about this without you. The house was my grandmother's old place. A narrow brick house with creaky floors and a fig tree out back that never actually produced figs, just leaves and hope. It had been empty for years, sitting there like an unresolved argument. Apparently, unresolved arguments accrue interest. My Aunt Denise cleared her throat and pushed the folder closer to me. There's some back taxes. And a lien. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy is family language for very crazy, just not crazy enough for them to want to handle it themselves. I flipped through the papers slowly, my fingers suddenly cold. There it was. My full legal name. First, middle, last. Spelled right. Dated. Signed. I laughed once real short. Why's my name on this? My mother sighed, like I had asked why the sky was blue. Because you're responsible. That word again. It followed me my whole life like a nickname I never agreed to. Responsible. The one who remembers deadlines. The one who doesn't forget to call back. The one who figures it out. Somewhere along the way, that turned into the one whose name they could use. It's just paperwork, Aunt Denise said quickly. You know how these things go. My cousin chimed in from the couch, not even looking up. You always help anyway. That's when I realized this wasn't a request. It was a reveal. They had already decided, already filed, already used my name as a cushion between them and the consequences. I felt heat rush up my neck. That familiar mix of anger and embarrassment, like I should have known better. Like it was somehow my fault for being dependable out loud. I didn't agree to this, I said. My voice sounded calm, which I didn't trust. My mother finally looked at me. Don't make this a thing. We already talked about you taking care of it. When? I asked. She waved her hand. You know, we mentioned it. Mentioned. The way people mention chores they fully expect you to do. They kept talking, words overlapping, about how the house had sentimental value, about how selling it would be a shame, about how everybody was struggling right now, about how I didn't have kids, didn't have a husband, didn't have anything tying me down like they did. That one landed harder than the rest. I closed the folder and slid it back across the table. I need copies of everything. The room went quiet in that way Black families get quiet, where everyone freezes but nobody actually stops listening. My uncle paused mid-sip of sweet tea. The TV kept playing some game show in the background, audience clapping at the wrong moment. For what? My aunt asked. To see what my name is doing on documents I never signed. My mother frowned. You're being dramatic. That was the humiliation part. Not the fraud. Not the debt. The way she said dramatic, like I was a child throwing a tantrum instead of an adult whose name had been used without permission. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and told them I'd be in touch. Nobody followed me to the door. They just watched, probably assuming I'd cool off, and come back ready to fix it like always. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the steering wheel, replaying every time I'd bailed someone out, every bill I'd covered just this once, every thank you that never quite reached gratitude. When I got to my apartment, I didn't even turn on the lights. I sat on the couch, phone glowing in my hand, and did something I don't usually do. I didn't call a cousin to vent. I didn't text the group chat. I didn't cry. I Googled the county office. The next morning, I took my lunch break early and called. The woman on the phone sounded bored in that efficient way that tells you she's seen worse. I gave her the address. She pulled the records. Yes, ma'am, she said. Your name is listed as a co-owner and responsible party for outstanding taxes. My chest tightened. With what signature? She paused. It appears to be signed on your behalf. On your behalf. That phrase felt like a slap dressed up in manners. She emailed me the records. Time-stamped. Filed years ago. Right around the time I'd been working 2 jobs and sending my mother money without asking questions. That night, I printed everything and spread it out on my kitchen table like evidence in a crime show. My name. Their handwriting. Dates I could trace back to family cookouts and birthdays, times when I'd been right there, unaware. I slept maybe 3 hours. The next day, I called a lawyer. He was calm, middle-aged, didn't interrupt, just nodded as I explained, like this wasn't the first time he'd heard a story that started with my family. This is not uncommon, he said gently, and it's fixable. Fixable sounded like oxygen. He explained my options in plain language. I didn't need to sue. I didn't need to fight them in court. I just needed to formally remove myself. A legal disassociation. A disclaimer of responsibility. Notices sent. Records updated. And once it's done, he said, you're done. I asked him to proceed. I didn't tell my family. I didn't warn them. I didn't argue. I just let the paperwork move. 2 weeks later, the notices went out. Certified mail has a way of making people take things seriously. My phone started ringing that same afternoon. My aunt first, then my brother, then my mother, leaving a voicemail that started with my full name, which she only uses when she's angry or scared. What did you do? She asked when I finally answered. I protected myself, I said. You took your name off, she snapped. Do you know what you've done? Yes, I said. Exactly. The panic came fast after that. Suddenly, the debt was urgent. Suddenly, the house was a burden. Suddenly, they wanted to talk. They tried guilt first. How grandma would feel. How family sticks together. How I was turning my back on them. Then they tried anger. Accusations. How I was selfish. How I thought I was better than everyone else. I listened quietly, noticing how none of it included an apology. When the county updated the records, my lawyer forwarded me the confirmation. My name was gone. Clean. Official. Like it had never been there at all. The court didn't ask me why. They didn't question my motives. They just corrected the record. A week later, my mother asked me to come by. Just her. No aunties. No backup choir. She looked tired. Older somehow. The house felt smaller. You embarrassed us, she said, not looking at me. You embarrassed me first, I replied. She didn't argue that. We sat in silence, the weight of years pressing down between us. Finally, she said, we thought you wouldn't mind. That might have hurt worse than anything else. Because she was right. They thought I wouldn't mind. That I'd absorb it. Carry it. Handle it. I stood up to leave, smoothing my jacket, adjusting my bag on my shoulder. Small motions that made me feel like myself again. They didn't lose me emotionally, I said at the door. They lost access. She didn't stop me this time. And as I walked out, I felt lighter. Not because I'd won something loud or dramatic, but because for the first time, my name belonged only to me again. By the time the court papers were finalized, my family had already rewritten the story in their heads, and somehow I was the villain who pulled the rug out from under everybody instead of the woman who quietly stepped out of a trap. That's the part nobody tells you about boundaries. When you finally put one up, people start acting like you built it overnight just to spite them, not like it was formed brick by brick from years of being leaned on. The calls didn't stop after that first wave. They just changed tone. Less panic, more manipulation. My Aunt Denise left me a voicemail that started sweet, almost nostalgic, talking about how Grandma used to say I was her favorite because I was wise beyond my years. I knew where that was headed before she even took a breath. We just need you to reconsider, she said. Not for us, for the family. The family. That phrase used to work on me. It carried weight. Sundays after church, folding chairs scraped across the fellowship hall floor. Somebody's perfume mixed with fried chicken and pound cake. The family was everything. Or at least that's what we were told, while certain people carried more than others. I didn't call her back. A few days later, my brother texted me. No greeting, just straight to the point. So what now? You just gonna let the house go? I stared at my phone, thumb hovering. My brother had always been the golden one. The one who needed more time to get it together. The one everybody protected from consequences. Meanwhile, I was expected to be born grown. I typed back, I'm not letting anything go. It was never mine to carry. He didn't respond. The house became the elephant in every room I wasn't even in. Apparently, once my name was gone, the county started sending notices addressed very clearly to the people actually responsible. Funny how official mail has a way of cutting through denial. That's when the real panic set in. My mother showed up at my apartment one evening without calling first. I was in my leggings, hair wrapped in a satin scarf, dinner half made. She stood in the doorway like she didn't know whether she was allowed to come in. You look tired, she said. So do you, I replied, stepping aside. She sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd laid out the evidence weeks before. Her eyes lingered there, like the memory was still sitting on the surface. They're talking about losing the house, she said quietly. I leaned against the counter. Then they should talk to a realtor, or a tax attorney, or each other. She sighed. You know, it's not that simple. It actually is, I said. Just not easy. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was seeing the version of me that wasn't 12 years old doing homework at that same table. You didn't even tell us you were getting a lawyer, she said. I didn't know I needed permission to protect myself. Her lips pressed together. That was always her tell. When she didn't have a comeback but didn't want to admit it. They feel blindsided, she said. I laughed softly. Imagine how I felt reading my own name on debt I didn't create. She didn't laugh with me. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. I thought she might say, we shouldn't have done that. We crossed the line. I was ready for that moment, had rehearsed what forgiveness might sound like. Instead, she said, you know they did it because they trust you. That old song. I felt something shift inside me, not anger this time, but clarity, clean and sharp. They trusted me to clean up a mess they didn't want to face, I said. That's not trust. That's convenience. She sat there a long time after that, staring at the grain of the table like it might offer a different answer. When she finally left, she hugged me tight, almost desperate. I hugged her back, because she's my mother and I still love her. But I noticed how she didn't ask me to reconsider anymore. She just looked tired. The next family gathering happened without me. I knew, because the group chat went quiet in that suspicious way, and then my cousin slipped up and posted a picture on her story. Everybody crammed into my aunt's backyard, paper plates balanced on laps, uncles guarding the grill like it held state secrets. I recognized the tablecloth. I recognized the laughter. I even recognized the tension, faint but present, like humidity before a storm. I wasn't invited, and for the first time, that didn't sting the way it used to. A week after that, my lawyer called me with an update. The county had finalized everything. My disassociation was recorded permanently. There was no appeal, no reversal unless I personally requested it. They can't attach your name to that property again, he said, not without your consent. And frankly, after this, nobody's touching that with a 10-foot pole. I thanked him and hung up, then just sat there, letting the quiet settle. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just peace. The real consequence came later, in pieces. My aunt stopped calling altogether. My brother moved out of state for a fresh start, which in family language meant he'd outpace the fallout. The house eventually went into a tax sale, not because of me, but because nobody else stepped up once the safety net disappeared. And me, I slept better. I didn't realize how much low-grade anxiety I'd been carrying until it was gone. That constant feeling of waiting for the next ask, the next emergency, the next, can you just handle this? My phone felt lighter in my hand. A few months later, my mother invited me to lunch. Just the two of us, neutral ground. A small diner she likes, the kind where everybody calls you baby and refills your coffee without asking. We talked about regular things at first. Work. Her blood pressure. A show we were both pretending not to watch. Then she said, I see it now. I looked up from my plate. You were always the one we leaned on, she continued. And I didn't protect you from that. I waited, didn't rush her. When your father left, she said slowly, I needed you to be strong. And I guess I never let you stop. There it was. Not an excuse. Not a full apology either. But something honest. I'm not mad at you, I said. I just couldn't keep doing it. She nodded. I know. That lunch didn't fix everything. But it shifted something important. She stopped volunteering my name in conversations. I noticed. When relatives asked her to tell me or have me handle, she'd say, you need to ask her yourself. Sometimes they did. Sometimes they didn't. Either way, it wasn't automatic anymore. That was the real victory. Months later, at another family gathering I did attend, someone joked about how I'd gone corporate with a lawyer and paperwork. Laughter rippled through the room, a little forced. I smiled politely, sipped my drink, and let it pass. Because what they didn't understand was that nothing had been taken from them unfairly. They lost access. That's it. Access to my credit. Access to my calm. Access to the version of me that would say, yes, just to keep the peace. I still show up. I still love them. I still bring a dish to cookouts and help my mama with her groceries. But my name is mine. And every time I see it printed now, clean and unburdened, I remember how quietly the court removed it, no drama at all. Just truth correcting itself. That's how I knew I'd done the right thing.